we grew to know the names on this team. Casey and Daffo, we got a chance to learn who he was. And ironically, one of the leaders of that team. Yo, this is Tribe with Yo's Tribe Sports Bag. As you can see, I'm back in the kitchen again, just for you. I'm cooking it up again this time. Not like last episode, there was no cooking going on. I'm cooking it for you again today. But before we get into that, let's handle this business, that YouTube business. Subscribe to the channel. Take care of that little business for a second. And then after you do that, give me a thumbs up. You know about that alarm bell. That alarm bell gives you every drop that I drop when I drop it. So now that we've gotten through the formalities of this YouTube channel, let's get to the business at hand. I know why you're here. You know why you're here. We're here for the same thing. Remember the Peacocks. That's right. The biggest Cinderella story in all of college basketball history is now over, but it is just the beginning. St. Peter's, the Peacocks, Jersey City, New Jersey, the small Catholic school. They did it. No, they did not win a national championship. That would have been great and a perfect ending to a perfect season, but they've broken through the threshold and has become a 15th seed who made it to the Elite Eight, the first team to do so. And while they did it, they brought so many memories with them. And we'll go down that, and you'll understand that by the end of this video. St. Peter's basketball, they lose, but they're still on top. They're now on the map. They're in top of the MAC, where they're from, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, not the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. They showed up, and they did what was right. What was win, and win some more. The true David and Goliath story. They represented the MAC, as I said, and guess what? They weren't even the best team in their conference going into the season or throughout the playoffs in their conference until they won the conference. Iona was supposed to win the conference, led by the legendary Rick Pitino. Iona was going through the entire conference without a problem until the end. In fact, Iona even beat Alabama earlier this season, if you saw and kept up with that. St. Peter's won the conference tournament, therefore giving them the right to go to the NCAA tournament when no one believed that they would even have a chance, even their own school, and we'll get to that in a moment. Going into this final game against North Carolina, the team was under 500 as a whole over 58 years. 826 wins, 827 losses. So that just lets you know how no one had given them a chance other than the people inside that locker room. They were 3-3 in previous tournaments that they've gone into, and they obviously did not move far into those tournaments. But how was this whole thing set up? How did they get this entire thing in motion? Shaheen Holloway, their great coach. No, I'm not saying great because he finally got a chance to win and everybody now know who he is. He is a great coach. He's done what he needed to do with a team like St. Peter's when no one gave them a chance. His pedigree proves all of that. The New York native out of Queens, played for St. Patrick's out there in New Jersey, one of the best players in high school when he was playing. So he has that leadership. He has that playing ability. He knows as a guard how to communicate with other guards. And that's why you saw a lot of what you saw during the tournament with these 2 and 3 guard sets that was driving these bigger teams crazy. But back to Shaheen Holloway, a former McDonald's All-America back in 1996. Just in case you didn't know, guess who else was in that class? Kobe Bryant, Jermaine O'Neal. You had a lot of names, Rip Hamilton, and he got the MVP of the tournament. So you know he could ball like most people from that tri-state New York area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And you could also see his fingerprint on that recruiting path when it came down to St. Pete's, when you look at the types of players that were on that team from Jersey, from New York, trying to take up the tri-state area, and you saw it live and in person with this team. Were they the true Cinderellas? There has never been a truer Cinderella. a small school from Jersey City, went big time with that tri-state flavor, as I was talking about. But I'm not going to take all the props from New Jersey or St. Peter's. It was a St. Peter's thing, and they showed you what it was all about. They got it buzzing and popping when they ran those 3-guard sets, and they had all of these bigger schools running around like chickens with their heads off. They were a dominant team at times, and it gave pause to think, you know what? These players who were not recruited by huge schools, they could play with these players that were playing at these huge schools and were 4- and 5-star players. We saw it ourselves. That's a true Cinderella, and they advanced with this same team. They have an operating budget without salaries, by the way, of $250,000. That's it. That's what they went on with. That's what David did with his little rocks going after Goliath. And guess what he did? They beat Kentucky, who spent over $130 million more than what St. Peter's did. And then they went on to beat Murray State. They beat all of these teams, and then they beat Purdue. Of course, it came to an end with North Carolina, but we're not here to talk about the loss. We're talking about how they got here, how they looked when they got there, and how impressive they were, and how the entire country who loves March Madness, who loves competition, who loves a great story, how they responded. And then remember the Peacocks. Remember the Titans? Remember the Peacocks. And we won't forget them for what they did for us in terms of all the memories they provided throughout the entire NCAA tournament. Even in losing, we still look at them and we salute them for what they did during the NCAA tournament as a true Cinderella story. The slipper is still on. The clock has not hit 12. They probably will be there again in the near future. You know what? During this entire tournament, like all other tournaments, there are so many storylines and bylines and whatnot. We grew to know the names on this team. Casey and Daffo, we got a chance to learn who he was. And ironically, one of the leaders of that team, 3-time MAC Defensive Player of the Year, St. Peter's was the dominant defense in the MAC, by the way, and that includes Rick Pitino's Iona squad. He was in the transfer portal not too long ago. He decided to come back to St. Peter's for his last season. And boy, did they need him. And boy, did he make the right decision. In fact, he may get himself an opportunity in the NBA. He may not get drafted, but I'm sure if he's in anyone's camp, he's going to do a solid enough showing to be in the circuit and maybe getting a dream opportunity in the NBA one day. We saw Darryl Banks III. We saw the way he played as a guard, one of those 3 guards out there. We saw Matthew Lee. We saw how he was out there contributing and how he was getting the crowd all into the game. And we cannot forget the viral mustache, Doug Eddard, how he stepped up with his precision 3-point shooting and his we need a big play even from the free throw line. He dropped dimes too with over 80% at the free throw line. Doug Eddard, everyone knows who the mustache is right now. Remember the Peacocks. Remember the mustache. You will not be allowed to forget when it comes down to that. We grew to know the storylines. Butch Lee, we talked about Butch Lee, or we probably didn't talk about Butch Lee. Butch Lee was on Marquette's 1977 national championship team. His son, Matthew Lee, we saw the pictures. We saw the emotions. It's all part of March Madness, and we were more than happy to watch their interminglings of the entire scope of what St. Peter's did. The storylines, the bylines, all of the anecdotal evidence we needed to just have a great tournament, highlighting the St. Peter's Peacocks, who just showed up and just ruined everybody's bracket, ruined the party, but we loved it when they had done it. Casey and Defo, like I mentioned, he came back after being in the transfer portal, and we saw what he was able to do. A tough guy in the paint and a scrappy guy, and we saw that he does potentially have professional basketball talent, maybe not the NBA, but professional basketball talent nonetheless. And let's not forget, I mentioned earlier how there were people out there who did not think this team would do as well as they did. They did not have the support of anyone really other than some of the people at their school and in themselves inside that locker room. How do I know? In the season opener, only 434 people showed up to the game. That's it, in the season opener. And what's even just as bad, during the season finale at home, 577 people showed up. But you know, once March Madness gets to percolating, once those cameras start coming out, once the winning begins, the bandwagon is open. The bandwagon is over-flooded. How do I know that? Because that same team that had just 434 players coming to their first game at home, they now had over 2,000 watching from the Run Baby Run arena. And it was all about the Peacocks. Everybody was a fan. They brought the campus together. Everybody was on television and they were happy about it. They pushed on these Peacocks the same way the Peacocks pushed these major programs. None of these players had big time offers. None of them. One of the biggest offers any of these players had was New Hampshire. New Hampshire. You had other names other than St. Pete's, Wagner, New Hampshire. That's it. You did not have big time names. So it goes to show you, big time players make big time plays and big time games. And you cannot measure someone's heart by a star system. Now moving forward, we can see the Peacocks. Are they going to do it again? What would they do for an encore? We don't know that. But we now know we have a bubbling scene here with a bunch of wild peacocks. A glass menagerie, for lack of a better term. You see these other videos that I have right now, they're all about sports. So if you want to take one out of the grab bag, go ahead and do so. I'm Tribe with Yo Tribe Sports Bag. Hit me up anytime you want, and I'm down with you. Until next time.